Okay, yeah. So welcome back, and as I said, I am hoping that most of you might have gone through all the previous sessions. Okay, in case you haven't, please go through it. And I'm hoping that everyone has access to the recording site. Let me know in the chat window, either via the YouTube channel or via Teach Yourself Coding. All of you have access to the recordings, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so let me know in case anyone still don't have or don't know where to find the recordings. So now the agenda for today is to kind of delve a little more into DOM applications, and let's build some small features from existing website. We will be continuing with these small examples for next 3-4 sessions, and after that we will be going into kind of small project-based implementation of using JavaScript and HTML and CSS. Okay, so we'll keep the initial examples very small so that it's very easily understandable and digestible, and then incrementally we will increase the complexity of the demo code. So now today what we will do possibly is maybe let's open a website like Twitter, right? So most of you are familiar with either Twitter or Facebook or something like that, right? And all these websites has a very cute little features wherein when you type something here, right, you will also get an indication as to how much character is keyed in or available, right? So here in if you take a look at the Twitter, here you have this indicator as an icon here at the bottom of this tweet message, right? So if this is kind of completely filled in, this circle will be completely full. So this tell you how many characters are allowed. Okay. For example, if I kind of type in something in here, you'll observe that the character count is increasing and the circle is getting fully completed, right? So is this observation clear to everyone? And once I reach the limit, I will not be able to type anymore. Okay, it actually goes into negative, but technically I will not be able to submit a tweet. Is this observation clear to everyone? Okay, so we have to build something like this. Okay, we will not put any icons as of now. We'll simply keep a text counter for now. Later on, we'll talk about graphics and CSS and animations. Okay, so today probably we'll try to build this part. Maybe later on when we will try to build a full stack application like Twitter or maybe e-commerce or maybe Facebook, something like that, right? So all these features we can accumulate into one single application. So this is our basic requirement as of now. So let's head back to our code editor. I'll just delete these tweets. Okay, I'll open up the JS bin. Okay, and as you all know, initially I'll be using JS bin, and later on maybe when we start building the project, I'll move to VS Code or some other editor. Okay, yeah. Okay, so here we have the JS bin, right? Let me just log into the JS bin. Okay, and this is where we will be writing our code. Okay, I'll simply give it a title. Title will be something like say character count. Okay, this is the title. And not very important as of now, but I am just kind of putting it here for reference. Now, what do we need for this, right? To build this application. So before we actually go into the JavaScript, let's build a simple markup. Okay, so I'll create an H1 and maybe I'll simply give it a title as character count or maybe limit. Okay, so we have an H1 here, right? A heading tag. Okay, I'll create a label here. Okay, and within this label, I'll give the text as say tweet. What do you want to tweet? Okay, and finally, I'll create a text area. Okay, so do not worry about the CSS, etc. So we have a tweet label here and we have a text area, right, which can be expanded. So as I type something into this text area, I actually want to implement that feature, and maybe at certain point I should not be able to type. Okay, so this is what we are trying to do. Maybe for simplicity's sake here, what I can do is probably in the CSS. Okay, I'll just simply create some CSS also so that you have some basic idea about that. Okay, I'll simply create a wrapper div here and I'll call it as container. Okay, and I'll wrap entire thing within the wrapper div. Okay, and then here in the CSS section, I'll simply create a ID. We'll target this div with an ID of container and set the display to flex. Okay, and flex direction, I set it to column so that these records are or this data is arranged in a columnar form. Okay, let's check whether this is kind of coming up correctly. Okay, so we have a div with an ID of container. The display is set to flex. Let me just try and change it to row. Okay, for some reason nothing is changing in here. Can anyone identify the issue with the code? Something related to, yeah, closing angle bracket for div. Yeah. Okay, so let's correct this out. Okay, now we have this, right? So I'll simply set the flex direction to column so that every element will be on its own column, right? Something like this. Okay, this is too huge, but let me just make it h2. Okay, this is our markup as of now, right? Now there are a couple of things I'll do in here. One thing is, let me just give an ID to this text area. So I'll say ID equal to, I'll say maybe content. Okay, I'm just calling it as content. Okay, and as a best practice, whenever you have a label, I can give it a label for and give the ID of content. So I hope everyone knows the reason of this, right? Why this label and this ID goes in together, right? So this is a better practice because when you attach a label with an ID, which is content here, when you click on that label, automatically focus will be on that input. Okay, it's very important to be aware of. So once we have this information, now what are the steps that we need to do to achieve our functionality, right? So I need to restrict input here. Okay, restrict some input kind of. Okay, maybe restrict or maybe just count it. As of now, we'll not restrict it. Let's simply count it. How many characters are being keyed in? Okay, that's what we need to do. Also, if I copy paste something, that should still work. Okay, it's very important requirement. If instead of typing, I am copying and pasting from somewhere else, right? Still the character count should happen. So that's kind of critical requirement for us. Now to achieve this, there are a couple of things that we will do. Okay, so first thing that we will do here is, we will grab this DOM element, okay, and we will attach an event listener. Okay, now which event listener are we interested in, right? So typically there are a lot of event listener. You can look out for key up, right? Key down, maybe change. There are a lot of events, right? But then there's one very important event for tracking changes in the input, and that is actually known as the input event. So now whenever you track the input event, so this get triggered whenever you type something into the input box or whenever you copy paste or cut paste something into the input box. Okay, that's why we have to use input event rather than using all these events together. It is very clear to everyone why we have to use the input event, because our requirement is we also have to need to cut, copy and track that also as well, right? So this is the logical flow of the application will be, right? So once we understand this, right, so once we dissect the requirements of the application, the implementation becomes very simple. Okay, now what we have to do for the implementation is simply we have to grab, okay, there's one more thing that we have to do in here. We have to show the character count, right? Maybe somewhere down the line here. Okay, after this text area, I'll say create a say footer maybe. Okay, and here I'll write characters written. Okay, and some value has to be shown here. Some value should go here. Okay, and this value should be dynamic. Okay, now to achieve this, what I can do is maybe, and this has to be styled differently also. I'll simply create a span here. Okay, and within this span, I'll put a default value of 0. Okay, and so that we can easily track this element, right? Capture this element. I'll also attach an ID to the span. Okay, and I'll call it as char count. So this is a markup, right? Maybe later on you can style this the way you want. Currently, I'm just keeping it simple like this. So whenever something changes here in the tweet, okay, this char count has to be updated. Okay, that's what our requirement is all about. Now let's see the implementation. Now this implementation will become very simple and easy to understand because we have already dissected the application, right? So first thing that we will do here, we will get this input content, right? And this is nothing but document dot query selector. I hope everyone remembers query selector, right? And we'll pass in the ID content. Okay, now we have this input content into a variable. Okay, we also need to get this span so that we can dynamically update the span, correct? So let's come back here and say const char count equal to document dot query selector char count. So now we have both the DOM elements with us. Any query in this? I think this part is very clear to everyone, right? This is a quick revision from the last sessions. Just drop a message in the chat window. Okay, yeah. Now the interesting part is here. We need to attach an event to this input, right? So we will say input content dot add event listener. So you all know more about add event listener, right? Because we went into a very detailed discussion on this topic, right? Event bubbling and event delegation, etc. kind of. And we will track for the input event. And when this event fire, let's call this function. Okay, and this is where we will write the code. Write the code here. Okay, because now we are only interested in the input event on this input content DOM element. So whenever content changes in this input, this function will be executed, right? And here what we will do, we'll simply say char count dot text content. Now text content is a property wherein we can simply set the text content. In case you want to set the HTML content, you will use something called as an inner HTML. Okay, and you will use the set text content property, and you will set the value as input content dot value dot length. This is what your entire code looks like. Quite simple, right? Once you understand what you need to build, right? You might also remember from the event bubbling session, right? By default, we have this false parameter here. Okay, not very important for this discussion, but I'm just putting in the full syntax for the add event listener. Okay. So once this is done, now if you go back here and start typing in here, hope it works, right? So the moment I don't see something here, that means there is something wrong with my code. This is very important to understand. I know there's a typo here, right? But then what happens is sometimes we actually are not able to make why the error is coming up, right? So always take a look at the developer toolbar, and here you will definitely find the error in the console window. Okay, see now here you can directly see a lot of errors coming up in here. Okay, and here in fact the error is quite obvious, right? The spelling here, it has to be length. Okay, once you correct the spelling here, okay, I can start typing in. Now once you understand how it works, you can actually limit the characters and things like that. All those things can be done here. Okay, so that is there will be an assignment for that. Okay, but before I go into that part and the subsequent part, is this clear to everyone so far? Absolutely every line of code is clear to everyone. Okay, and we know why this input we are using, right? Because now if we cut and paste here, now when I cut it, the characters written is 0. If I paste it, you will see it's actually 11. Okay, so everything is kind of working as expected. Later on, we will add some icons, images, and animations. Okay. Okay, this is one small topic I wanted to show you with some applications. So is this clear, everyone? One more time in the chat window. Any query, anything, even if it's a small query, please feel free to ask. Okay, if this is clear, can we move to one more example for today? Okay, yeah. Okay. So this is one example, and I'll share this link with you in the Telegram group. Okay. And now let's over to the next requirement, the second requirement. Now let me explain you the requirement first. Okay, and then possibly you can see how to implement it. Okay. So let me bring up a new JSBin window, and my requirement is very simple. Okay. So I have a huge document. Suppose. Okay, and I'm reading this document, right? So we have a huge document, okay, and that contains a lot of text. Okay? And this text contains an H2 element, something like this. Okay, it can be anything, huh? Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have this document, HTML document that contains this H2 element like this. Okay, and then it has content. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to create an automatic table of content generator, table of content generator, so that when the code is run, automatically all these H2s, this has to be captured, and a table of content has to be created like this. So that when you click on this one, you will actually go to that section 1. When you click on 2, you actually go into section 2, and so forth. Is this requirement clear to everyone? Okay, now this can be any DOM document. Okay, so we are keeping the structure simple. So suppose you are creating a ebook, right? And you write your content in HTML, and maybe you need to create a table of content, right? Rather than manually going and updating the table of content every time, so let's create a script so that this table of contents are automatically created. Okay, that's what our requirement is all about. Okay, and let's see how step by step we can achieve this basic requirement first. Later on, maybe we can add the complexity, etc. Okay, so once we understand this requirement, let's head back to the code here. And before I do anything, let me just give it a title. This is TOC generator. Now, the important thing is I need some sample data, right? So I'll create a H1 table of contents. Okay, and I'll create a div with an ID of TOC. So this is where the table of content should go. Okay, this is the area where we have to dynamically create and add the table of content. Okay, and then we have the actual documents here. Okay, so maybe we have H2 ID equal to 1, and I'll say heading 1. Okay, and then some content go here, right? Some content goes here again and again. It can be lengthy or small content. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, something like this. And similarly, this kind of content, maybe you are getting it from services or database call, right? So yeah, so there will be contents like this created. Our job is to build an automatic TOC. So here we have heading 1. Here we have heading 2. Maybe I'll ID it here. Okay, and you can give any ID. I'm just simply calling it as 1, 2 for now. And this is 3. Okay, so this is our document, right? And assume this document is very large. You are writing a thesis, research paper, you are writing your book and something like this. Now what I want is, I want to write a JavaScript code here which will loop through all the H2s and then dynamically create an ordered table of content and insert that dynamically generated content within a div with an ID of TOC. So before I proceed, is this requirement clear to everyone? Okay, great. Okay. Now let's see how we can implement this. So before we implement, right, it's very, very important to understand how do you analyze a problem, right, and how do you arrive at a solution. Now, one thing that is very, very clear here is we know the requirement is to capture H2s. And now tell me, how can I capture all the H2? What is the command you will execute? Anyone? I need to capture all the H2. Which DOM command you will be executing? Document.query selector all. Correct, exactly, yeah. Okay, so document.query selector all, maybe H2. So this will give me an array of H2, array like object, and not exactly an array. Then what I need to do is I need to check if this array length is greater than 0. Okay, because sometimes it may happen in the document there is no H2, right? So we will check whether the length is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, we will loop through all the array, loop through all the elements, H2 element, and dynamically create the UI, create the table of content, which is nothing but an ordered list. We'll create an ordered list. Is the pseudocode steps clear to everyone? Okay. Okay. So now see, let's translate this into code. Okay, let's translate this into code. So now first thing I'll do here is I'll get the table of content. TOC equal to document dot query selector TOC, right? This is where we have to create that document. Okay, and then we have to get all the heading, get all H2. Okay, so I'll say const headings equal to document dot query selector all H2. Okay, now there's a slight problem here. It's not actually a problem. This query selector all, it doesn't return an array. It returns an array like object. Okay, that's very important to understand. For example, if I simply log here console.log headings, okay, and if I open the debug window or developer toolbox, okay, and if I take a look at the console here, okay, and if this code is executed, okay, there's a slight typo, right? So let me just correct the typo here. Okay, you see, you are actually getting say 3 elements, right? But this is not an array, it's actually a node list. Is this observation clear to everyone? That means you cannot directly loop through it. Okay, that's very, very important to understand. Okay, so being aware is very, very important here. Now, how can I convert this into an array, right? The easiest way to convert this into an array is, what I can do here is, I could use the ES6 notation, array destructuring. I simply put this within an array, okay, like this square bracket. Okay, this is an array, right? Okay, and then I'll simply destructure here by using dot, dot, dot. Okay, the moment you do this, okay, and if you run the code, now you will see you actually get an exact actual array here as an output. Okay, H2, H2, H2. So this is an ES6 destructuring operator we are using to convert an element into an array. Is this very, very clear, everyone? Okay, let me show you the old way also, right? So the old way was this. So let me show you old way. Okay, so something like this, const headings equal to the document dot query selector all H2. Okay, and then I could do something like this. Say, I'm just logging it here for reference. Console.log. I could do array dot slice dot call. I'll pass headings as an output. Okay, so this is one more way to convert into an array. Okay, this is a cryptic way, right? The syntax. So if this is not clear to you, do not worry. I just wanted to show you the old way. Later on, once we talk about more JavaScript, right, these things will become very, very clear to everyone. Okay, so I'm just putting it for reference here, not very, very important. Important thing is this one, const headings equal to document dot query selector H2, and just use this array operator, wrap it within an array and give the destructuring operator, which is nothing but 3 dots. Okay, this will give you an array of elements. So once you have an array, we have to check whether the length is 0, right, or greater than 0. I'll say headings dot length is greater than 0. Then only we have to create the table of content. Okay, then only we want to create the table of content, right? So this is where the code will go. Now here we have to dynamically create an unordered list or ordered list of H2s, right? So here something has to be done. That means we have to loop through all the H2 and then dynamically create a list. Okay. So for that, what I can do is I'll create a variable called say HTML, which is initially say empty. Okay. And then what I can do is I could say headings dot map. Okay. Now this map is a very important function. Okay. We'll study in detail about map, etc. I'll share some resources and we'll talk about it. Map simply means loop through the array element. Okay, map simply means loop through the array element. And the unique feature of map is we can do data transformation in the map method. That is, data in one form can be changed into data in another form. Okay, so for data transformation, this map method is very, very useful. You can also use a normal for loop as well. Okay, but I'm showing you the right way to do it here. That's why I'm using the map method. So in map, what I'll do, I'll simply loop through and convert this heading element into an unordered list. Something like that has to be done, right? That's why we will use the map method. Okay. Now this map method will return something back. Actually, it will return something back. That return value will be stored into the HTML variable. Okay. So I'll say headings.map. Okay, and map receives a function. Okay, and we will grab every individual element from there. So this simply means that loop through the headings array, and for every individual heading, do something here. Do something with each H2. This is the meaning of this. This variable name can be anything. This can be ABC. It can be anything. But I know this is a headings loop, right? That's why I'm giving it a meaningful name of heading. Is this very clear to everyone so far? Okay. Now, one more important thing you have to be aware of, that the map function always returns something, right? So the thing you have to remember is this: suppose you have an array, suppose 1, 2, and 3. Okay, there are 3 elements in the array, right? There are 3 elements. Okay, and when you use the map method, you will get back an array. This will also contain 3 elements. The difference being this data can be transformed. Data can be transformed. That is why we are using the map method. Okay, but the thing to note is if there are 3 inputs, there will be 3 output. It is very, very clear to everyone. So if there are 100 inputs in the map, there will be 100 outputs. Okay, let me know in the chat window. Is this clear to everyone? Yeah, es5 slice.call.notList. Okay, but that's not required now. Okay, we'll talk about why it's not required also later on. Okay, now once we understand this, right, we just have to transform the data. Okay, we just have to transform the data. So here what I'll do, for every heading, I'll use backtick now. Okay, now this backtick is again a template literal. Okay, this is not single quota. This is backtick. This is just above your escape or tab character. Okay, now this is actually used to dynamically create long strings in JavaScript. Okay, so here what I can do is, okay, so this is where I'll be creating the string. Okay, so here for every heading, I'll create an li. Okay, so this is what we are doing. And here the content of the li will be replaced with $. So this is how we do string interpolation in JavaScript. So this means here we are using dynamic variable now. So we have to create an li, but this $ simply means some dynamic variable will come into play. And what is the dynamic variable? We need the content of this heading, right? Because the title should be printed. So here we will say heading dot text content, heading dot text content. Okay, so now what will the output of this code is? If you try to log this information, console.log HTML, you will actually see an array that will contain 3 elements. But the difference being, instead of H2s, it will contain li, and it will contain this dynamic heading content also. So if you take a look at the output here in the developer tool, you will see your original value was 1, 2, 3 heading, but your transformed data is li heading 1, li heading 2, li heading 3. We transform the data from H2 to into LIs. Is this very, very clear, everyone, so far? Why you had 3 headings? Because there was 3 inputs, right? And map function will always give the number of output will be same as number of input, and that's exactly what we want. The only thing here is this is an array. We don't want an array here now in the HTML, right? We simply want a string. So for that, what we can do here is here I could simply say HTML equal to HTML dot join with an empty. So this will actually give you a string value out of that array. Okay, so array has a join method, and using the join method we can give any delimiter here. So if I give a delimiter of say pipe symbol, see in the output you will see the pipe symbol is there. See, right? It actually joined the array using that pipe symbol. Now what I'm saying is I don't want any delimiter. That essentially means I could simply give an empty string literal in that delimiter here. So in that case, there won't be any pipe. You will simply get the text value here from the array. Is the join method clear, everyone? So join method can convert an array into a string, and we can pass in a delimiter. The delimiter can be anything. Okay, in this case, we don't want a delimiter, so we simply give empty string. Now, one more thing we have to do here is, we got this li heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, right? So this is heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Now we just need to wrap this within an ordered list, right? That's quite simple. I could simply say HTML equal to backtick again. Okay, I'll say ordered list, and within this ordered list, I will simply put the HTML. Okay, I am actually splitting the code into multiple lines just for the sake of understanding. And now if you take a look at the output here on the right side, you will see that the final output is an ordered list with li heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. Okay, there's one more thing that we want here. Okay, for example, at this point in time, if I come back here and we already have that DOM element, right? So if you go back here, you already have a TOC. Let's insert that UI into this TOC now. Okay, so here I'll come and say TOC.inner HTML equal to HTML. And then now you can see here, you have this table of content automatically created. Okay, but we have one problem here. You cannot click and go to that link. Okay, that has to be fixed. But before we fix that, is this part clear to everyone so far? Just let me know in the chat window. Everyone, this is clear so far? Okay, I'm just creating some more content. Okay, now the only thing that is required to be done here, now doesn't matter how many content you have here, right? You can add more content here later. Okay, automatically the TOC will be created for you. So this is heading 4. Okay, and you can see on the right side, this heading is automatically created. Now the only problem that we have to fix here is when you click on this heading, right, you have to navigate to that section. That's the part that is pending. Now to implement that feature, what we can do is we can wrap this heading within an anchor tag, and we can give this ID of this heading. Okay, that's what we need to do now. Okay, and once that is done, our functionality for creating a TOC, the basic TOC will be completed. Okay, so let's do that now. So what we have to do is, before we print this heading here, we have to simply wrap that heading code with a anchor tag. Okay, so that essentially means here, I'll just bring it to new line so that the code is readable here. Okay, and here I'll say anchor tag. Okay, right now we created an anchor tag. Okay, but it's not pointing to anything. Okay, so I'll have to put an href, and by default I'll put an href of hash. Hash means it doesn't point to anywhere. Nothing will happen now. But now instead of hash, this should actually point to the ID. Okay, and what is the ID we have? Where the ID has 3, 2, 1, whatever ID we have, right? This ID has to be given to the anchor tag. And once you give an ID to the anchor tag, automatically the page will scroll to that position. Is this requirement ever clear to everyone so far? How to implement this? The second part of the code. Okay, you have to create an anchor tag, and then you have to give an ID. Now, how do you give an ID, right? I could simply come here and say, okay, hash definitely for the ID. And here I'll use $sign for dynamic variable. Okay, because this entire code is within this backtick, right? So we can directly substitute here. And here the ID, we can get it from heading.id. We can get the ID from heading.id. Okay, I'm just putting this on new line. And now our code is complete. So the heading is created. Now if I click on heading 4, you see, you automatically scroll to 4, correct? If you click on 3, you will scroll to 3. So this is what the code for automatic content, TOC content generator is all about, right? So once you simplify it, break it down, right, things actually become very, very easy. So is this example and utility very, very clear to everyone? Okay, I'll be sharing some assignments in the group from today onwards. Okay, so let me know any queries are there or not. Today I just wanted to take this small example because we are coming after a long break, and maybe in subsequent sessions, once these core fundamentals are done, we'll start with the project. Okay, before that, I'll ensure that basic concepts are clear for everyone. Okay, any queries, anyone? Okay, yeah. Okay. So that's it for today's session. So what I'll be doing is I'll be uploading the recording in the YouTube channel once the recording is processed, and I'll share a couple of assignments in the Telegram group. Try to do the assignments because that will improve actually the code. Also share the assignment in the group link because others can learn from it. Because maybe the same assignment multiple 10 or 15 people will do in different way, right? So everyone can learn from each other's code. Okay, that's the idea of the assignment will be all about. Okay, so I hope this session was useful to everyone, and we'll catch up on Friday again with more examples, a bit more advanced examples we'll do on Friday based on whatever we are learning so far. Is that clear, everyone, so far? Okay. Okay, thank you very much, and watch out for assignment in the group, and we'll catch up on Friday, and probably in after 4 or 5 sessions, we'll start with the project also. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.